So take me through it. I mean, you're walking along, you're having a great hike, and then what happens?
Well, Jessica had fallen a little bit into the sand that, I didn't know that it was quicksand. We had a stick that we would stick in the ground, see how far it would go in, and everything seemed to be fine. But she had tripped and fallen, forward, and her hands went into the sand, and her knees were in, and she had started to sink. So I was standing behind her, and I was telling her not to, move fast or freak out, so that she didn't sink faster. And so I'm helping lift her out of the sand, and at that point, I realized that I was sinking also, and by the time I realized that my whole right leg was down to my hip in the sand, and my left leg up to my shin, middle of my calf, had started sinking in also. So I was able to pull my left leg out slowly, and at that point I realized that my right leg wasn't moving at all. I couldn't pull it up, and I didn't have any leverage to hang on to anything to lift myself out. But I realized that my leg wasn't moving at all anyway.
Had you ever even, before this hike started, had you ever even thought about quicksand? Did you even know it was a thing and that it would even be a factor in your hike?
No, not at all. There was a couple of areas that were exactly the same, but your boot would sink into halfway about your boot, and then you would stop. It wouldn't suck you all the way in. At the most, it would get to your ankle, and you could pull it out easily.
You thought you guys were just walking through the little mud.
Yeah.
So you got your left leg out, your right leg almost down to your hip, you said?
Yeah.
So at what point did you realize, oh crap, I'm in trouble? Was it right away, or did it take a little while?
Yeah, pretty much right away. I knew it wasn't going to come out. As soon as she realized that I wasn't going to come out, she had dropped down and started digging with her bare hands into the sand. And as soon as you dig, the water just refills the sand up. So as fast as you can dig it out, it refills it. And she had all of her sweater on and clothes, so it was just soaking her clothes. And 30 seconds of your hands being in the water, they just start burning really bad, and it's freezing cold, so you can't keep digging because it's too cold.
How cold was it outside?
I'm not sure, but it was right after she had left, it started snowing really bad.
Yeah, so I mean, in general, we're talking at the least 30s.
30, yeah.
Yeah.
30.
So the water is freezing cold.
Yeah.
So how soon did you realize, all right, or take me through it, I mean, eventually you realized, all right, I'm not going to get out, we got to do something.
Yeah, so at that point, it was, I realized I wasn't coming out, and she had gotten a few sticks for me, and we tried to dig the sticks down in deep just to move the sand around, but that wasn't working either. So we took about 20 minutes of, trying to figure something out, and I realized it wasn't going to work. So I told her she had to leave and go back to where she could get cell service.
What time of day was this about?
About 2 o'clock when she left.
About 2 o'clock, so you're closing in, you only have a few hours left, maybe. You got daylight till what, maybe 6 o'clock or something?
Yeah, maybe 6 o'clock, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so you decided to have her go hike.
Yeah,
and try to get help.
We were 4.5 miles in, and it took us close to 5 hours to get to where we were at. So I knew that it was going to be difficult for her because I had to help her quite a bit getting to where we were at. So I knew her going alone was going to be really hard on her.
And she went back the same way you guys came?
Yes.
You were probably couldn't have been a worse spot because you were right in the middle of your hike pretty much.
Yeah, well, we were at the end.
Oh, you were at the end?
Yeah, we were about 5 minutes away from where we were getting.
Because it was just an up and go straight back.
Yeah, basically.
Gotcha.
I knew it was going to be really hard for her to do it by herself. But that was the only hope that I had, was for her to make it back.
So she says, all right, I'll do it. She leaves. I mean, what's going through your mind when it's how prepared are you? I mean, are you freezing cold out there? You have a big jacket?
Yeah, I didn't have a shirt. I just had a jacket on and a beanie. I didn't have gloves or anything. So I realized it was going to take her a while, but I felt like I had enough daylight that it would have been okay as long as she made it. But that was the only part that I didn't know, is if she could make it fast enough, because us two together took 5 hours to get to where we were at, and her by herself it was going to take longer, I figured.
And so one of your biggest worries was just, could she make it back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was more scared of her not being able to make it back and just both of us being stuck out there.
Are you in pain as you're waiting there for 4 hours? Are you in pain, or is it you just stuck?
Pain started to sink in about 3 or 4 hours into waiting. It was just so cold and miserable. My body started to shake so much. It just felt like needles in my leg the whole time. And I had tried to move around so much that I felt like I had twisted my leg a little bit inside of the sand. So I didn't really know which direction it was. But the water was so cold that it made it really painful.
What are you thinking when, like, she leaves and it's you there all alone in Zion National Forest? You must have thought, what's going through your mind?
At first I was really scared. I had pretty much come to the realization that I would lose my leg when she left. That's all I thought.
You thought for sure it was gone?
Yeah, because it was so cold, and I knew it was going to take a long time for her to get back, if she could get back. And about 30 minutes after she left, it started pouring snow really bad. So I had just tucked my arms inside of my jacket and my face, covered my face with my beanie, and just hoped for the best, really. That's all I could do. I got scared a little bit after, a couple of hours. I started to worry. I'd actually fallen asleep standing there because it was so exhausting on me to just stand against the water. So I'd fallen in, my butt had fallen into the water and soaked my clothes all over again. And one of the sticks that she had given me, it stuck in front of me in the sand. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to sit up because I couldn't stand myself up. My hip gave out.
Oh, wow.
So I held the stick and lifted myself up out of the water. But I knew I couldn't go back into the water because it was too cold and it was too much on my body to pull myself up. And my jacket sleeves were completely frozen solid.
Wow. I think a lot of people, I've interviewed some people who have been in, I don't want to say similar circumstances as yours because they're pretty unique, but people that have been tough situations where they say, like, the things that go through their mind is like their family and their loved ones and their, they pray.
Yeah.
Any of that for
Honestly, the only things I could think of is that I didn't care if I was going to lose my leg. I just wanted to see Jessica and my family again. That's all I could think about, was seeing them. I didn't really care if I was going to lose my leg at that point because I just didn't want to die.
Did you ever sort of lose hope?
I did at one point when the sun had gone all the way down. I knew that it had been quite a few hours. I didn't really know how long it had been. I just knew that she had left at 1:30 or at 2 o'clock, so I knew that, and now it was completely dark. So I didn't know that she had made it because I knew enough time had passed that she should have made it back to, where she could get cell service, and I had figured a helicopter would come, and that wouldn't have taken very long. So
right.
At that point, I was just trying to stand up as long as I could, and hope that she made it out.
All right, well, let's get to the good part. When do you realize that help's coming?
So it was.
How long after the sun went down?
It felt like 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
And he did, the rescuer, his name was Tim. He said that he got there, it was about 10 o'clock when he got there.
So you were stuck for 8 hours?
Yeah.
About 8 hours?
9 hours. I was stuck for 9 hours,
yeah.
And then it took about an hour to get me out.
And so did you see, was it rescuers that they came, they had hiked in, or?
Yeah, so yeah. I had basically just tucked my arms in my jacket and my face, and I was resting my neck on the stick because that was the only way I could hold myself up. And I just closed my eyes, and at that point I was just hoping that I didn't fall back in, because I didn't know if I could lift my body back out. And so when I'm laying there, I saw a bright light hit my beanie, and I figured I was dreaming. I didn't know that it was real. But it had moved around, the light had moved around, so I just started to yell here really loud as I could. And I realized that I wasn't dreaming, and he yelled back. So that's when I had lifted my head up out of my jacket, and I took my arms into the freezing, frozen sleeves and just started waving and yelling, and he had ran up and started trying to get me out.
Wow, unbelievable. So, so this group of, what was it, 4?
Well, they started at 4.
Started at 4.
And he got there an hour before everybody else.
Oh, wow. So he hiked ahead.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, was he able to get you out, or did he what was the process of getting you out?
No, he said that he was there first because he usually can hike everywhere fast because he's just so proficient in the area. Mm-hmm. And he'll try to get me out before they get there. So he didn't really know the severity of it. He threw me a rope and asked me to hold on to it, which I couldn't grip it. I could hold it, but I couldn't grip it. And I was like, my leg's completely stuck. There's no way that's going to work. And so he had tried to make sure that he wasn't going to get stuck because he didn't want to have both of us stuck. Mm. So he had put rocks all around me and gotten a pulley around my waist and under my arms, hooked to a rock. And he started to pull me out of where the rock was, and as he was pulling it, it just felt like my leg was ripping out. It didn't feel like it was moving at all. It just felt like my hips were being ripped and my whole leg was just being pulled forward.
Jeez.
So I had to, it was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. I had to tell him to stop because I couldn't take it anymore.
Couldn't bear it. So eventually when his colleagues arrived hours later, how'd they get you out?
So
were you out for that night?
Yeah. So once they showed up, they, built quite a few rocks around behind me. So I had 3 guys behind me, and they'd moved the strap down to just underneath my knee and strapped it to the rock. So one of them was pulling that while the other 2 were digging with their gloves and lifting my body at the same time. And as she was pulling the strap around my leg, I could feel it moving, and they were digging around it, so I could feel it lifting out. And it was the worst pain I've ever felt, but I could feel it lifting, so I said, just keep pulling it. And eventually it came out, and they lifted me up and got me out to the side and sat me on a rock.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So the worst pain of the whole experience was getting pulled out.
Yeah, it was by far the worst I've ever felt.
Wow. What was the relief like? And I don't know whether it happened whether you got out or when the first guy arrived. But what was the relief like when you realized, all right, I'm gonna at least get out of here?
Yeah. When I saw him and heard him talking, the first thing I asked him is if who called him, and he said that Jessica called him, and I asked if she was okay, and he said, yeah, she's fine, that she's back in their ambulance, and they were taking care of her. So I knew that they would get me out, so I just felt completely relieved because she was okay and that they were there.
You sound like you were more worried about her.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. So what was the night like, and when did you realize, oh crap, we're gonna have to spend the night out here?
Once they got me out and they got me to the side, they got my wet clothes off and gave me some dry clothes and put me into a thermo sleeping bag that threw some heating pads in there, and took about 45 minutes, and I stopped shaking. I was completely warm. They did an awesome job at making me feel good. My foot was still pretty numb. I couldn't feel it or move it or anything, but I knew that I would be okay.
Did they give you any first aid on your leg? Could they?
No.
Yeah.
He touched it and seeing if I could feel anything. I couldn't feel nothing. He said that it might have been dislocated because he said it was a little bit crooked. from pulling it out, most likely. But he said pretty much I would be fine as long as my body temperature was okay, and they had gotten me back to normal temperature, and I was really warm, and they did an awesome job.
Wow.
It made me feel safe.
So early morning, the helicopter shows up and they hook you up, and what was that like?
Yeah, well, when we woke up about 6 a.m., it was pouring snow harder than it had been the whole time. So he was like, well, we got to prepare to stay another night. There's no way that we're going to get a helicopter in here. So he said to switch crews out. So he had sent 2 people home, and he was going to ask for 2 more people to come with more supplies. At that point, it was probably about 10 a.m., and the weather cleared out just enough where they were like, well, let's try to get a helicopter in there right now.
Wow.
So they had about an hour of clear skies, and they got a helicopter in there, and they lowered a guy down, and he kept me in the bag that I was in, just threw me in the hoist bag, strapped me up, and lifted me out.
What was that like, getting left above Zion National Forest?
Yeah, it was real scary. I'd never been in a hoist or anything like that. Just started lifting me above the ground, and took about a minute, and I was at the top of the helicopter, and they got me in there, and that's when I finally felt like I would be okay and I would keep my leg, because I could move my toes at that point and thaw it out.
What do you have to say about the rescuers and everything? It must have been unbelievable.
Yeah, I just want to say how much I appreciate them. They really saved my life. They also saved Jessica's life. They were amazing, and anyone who gets stuck in there can rely on them saving your life.
When you got to the hospital and they looked more closely at your leg, what did they say, and what's the prognosis?
They had me get x-rays, and everything checked out normal, fine, nothing was wrong at all. He said I have some muscle damage, but if I could try to walk, that I could go ahead and just walk out of there. And I was able to walk. They helped me walk, and within 45 minutes of being in the hospital, I was out.
So you just really sore now, pain?
Yeah. My leg's just swelling up, and I just have a lot of pain in my body just from being so sore and exhausted.
All right. It's funny because you actually look pretty good.
Yeah.
Besides your leg.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get checked out today?
Yeah. I'm gonna go to the doctor right after this.
Yeah. Do you one day you're gonna sit and have a beer, maybe it's too soon, but one day you're gonna sit and have a beer and laugh about this experience, and you guys are gonna say, do you believe that we went through this?
Yeah, it's hard to believe right now that I'm alive, and I will be pretty much normal. I thought for sure I wouldn't have my leg, and being alive just feels good, but also knowing that I'll be okay feels great.
Did you think it's gonna, I know it hasn't been that long, but do you think it's gonna change your outlook on things?
Yeah, I definitely do not want to hike in the wintertime anymore. I'm good.
We're done with winter hikes.
Yeah.
How about your outlook on life?
I'm just feel grateful to be alive now. It was definitely a life-changing experience. It's hard to process it all still, but I'm glad I'm alive.
Do you, like your girlfriend said, most of us think of quicksand as like a Disney movie or whatever. Is it, sort of just what's your take on that? It happened to you, this story just doesn't happen. What happened to you just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and it was just an unlucky step. We couldn't have prepared any better than we prepared. And I think that's what saved my leg as much as it did, is that we were prepared.
I was going to say, did they give you a hard time at all? Did they say, oh, you should have been on the trail, or you should have been in this area or anything?
No, because, there really wasn't a trail.
Yeah.
There were footsteps where we were at, so we were following footsteps, and it was just an unlucky step.
What are you hoping that a lot of people will see this tonight? A lot of people have seen your first interview already, but what do you hope that people get out of hearing your story?
Just to to tell somebody that where you're at and when you should be home, and be prepared for as much as possible, because it could happen to anybody, and you don't think it's going to happen to you until you're waist deep in quicksand.
Mother Nature is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.